No. Hey, Joe.
Hello there. How are you?
Good. Now classes are over, right?
Finals are
Oh,
go,
finals.
go on this week and late work and all that stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
official classes are over. So
Okay, good. Another semester.
um,
At least that's how I used to look at it when I was working on my degrees. Like I lived my life like 16 weeks at a time.
yeah. I don't know. I seem to remember classes and finals getting close to coming up. I turn my light on my office, getting close to like a week before Christmas. Seems like they let them out earlier now.
Yeah.
But that's kind of that's better. Oh, okay. So, how many people do you think we'll have for this?
I think we should have about a dozen.
Okay, all right. And it officially starts at 11:30.
Yes, and
Okay.
I will introduce you and could have everybody on the call introduce themselves, and then I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, and you allow me to share the
Yes,
screen.
sir.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, that's good. I kind of worked on a little bit of this today, but I'm not sure what you're expecting from me, but I think this will probably cover a lot of stuff. And you can tell me afterward if you think I hit what I'm supposed to do.
Yep.
I have a presentation I give to the small agencies like municipalities and
Yep.
the like school districts and that sort of thing. So I kind of tailored it along those lines because a lot of the issues are the same. So
Yep.
Anyway, we'll see. I'd rather it be in person. I can interact more, but that's okay.
I know.
Of course, you probably travel all over the state to be able to do this stuff via Zoom.
Yeah. Diana, are you taking roll?
I am. How did
Okay,
you
good
know?
job.
Julianne had emailed and said, could you please take roll? And I'm like,
yeah, and I haven't responded to her email yet, but I will.
No problem. We'll get it figured out one way or the other.
So we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Cindy Miles, and I'm the president and CEO here at the Kansas Nonprofit Chamber, and I'm excited to have you all today. And we're going to start out with having everybody introduce themselves because I have Joe Jabara who's going to make the presentation. I'll tell you a little bit about Joe here in a minute, but I did want to have everybody go ahead and introduce themselves and just tell your name and what organization you're with, and that way Diana can make sure that she takes roll properly, and Joe can be aware of who he's speaking with today. And so we will go ahead and we'll start with Judy.
Hi, everyone. I am Judy Brodman. I'm the president and CEO of Sunflower House in Shawnee, Kansas.
Welcome. Bev?
Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm Bev Turner. I am the executive director at the new CAC in Douglas County.
And Donita.
Hi, I'm Donita Garner. I'm with the Child Advocacy Center of Hope Unlimited in Iola, Kansas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I see Mecklemore 361.
Hello, my name is Heather McLemore. I'm a detective with the Great Bend Police Department.
Thank you. Jim, you want to introduce yourself and tell us who you're with?
I'm Jim Lorenzos. I'm a board member for the CASA in Leavenworth, Kansas.
Perfect, thank you. And Diana?
Good morning. I'm Diana Shen. I'm the Executive Director for the Child Advocacy Center of Sedgwick County in Wichita.
And we have Kelly joining us. Kelly, you want to introduce yourself and tell what organization you're with?
Hi, my name is Kelly Sneller, and I am the program director for the Leavenworth Atchison CAC.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to introduce you to Joe Jabara. He is the director and hub for cybersecurity education awareness at WSU. He oversees the direction and curriculum of cybersecurity related fields at the university, as well as promote cybersecurity education and collaborating with the community at large. He is a native of Wichita and received his Bachelor of Science degree cum laude from Wichita State. He also holds a law degree from Washburn and is currently licensed to practice in the state of Kansas. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe. I appreciate him taking the time to present to us today. And Cindy Riddell from Sunflower House she's joining as well. And Joe, I'll turn it over to you. You can share the screen. When we get done, I will launch a poll to get feedback on this presentation. So I'd appreciate you all hanging out and doing that poll. But Joe, you can share your screen and I will turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Can everybody see that? Good. Okay. So one thing that Cindy didn't mention, but I think kind of important about my background, I probably forgot to include it in my bio, but one of the things I was going to tell you is 30 years I spent in the Air Force and Air National Guard, and my last 12 years I was a commander for the Kansas Air National Guard Cyber Intelligence unit out here at McConnell. So that's kind of where I formulated a lot of my interest and desire to continue working in this capacity when I retired. So that kind of gives you a background, a little bit of where I'm coming from on this on this presentation. So anyway, I will go ahead and start. Thank you for having me today. I don't know, how long do I have? I don't know where Cindy went. How long do I have, Cindy? Is she there? Oh. All right. Okay. So everybody hear me okay? All right. All right. So, this is kind of my motto. I don't know if anybody remembers the Adams family, Morticia Adams. That's kind of what she one of the things she said, and it holds really true with cybersecurity and the bad guy, the bad actors. What's normal for the spider, again, is chaos for the fly. All right, so some terminology to get started here, just because I think this stuff is very, very misused, and I want to make sure that there's an understanding of what all this includes. Malware is anything that's bad on your computer that was put there by somebody else. It can be very different forms. I kind of analogize malware to termites, because there's, I didn't realize this, there's like 2,000 species of termites. There's really only about 5 or 6 that really do damage to your house. So, malware is a termite, but depending on what type of malware it is kind of like what type of termite, what kind of damage they do. So as we go through this, anything you hear, if you hear any of these terms spoken, they are a form of malware. So if somebody says, I got some sort of virus and malware on my computer. Virus is part of a malware, so they're kind of misspeaking. But you know, Trojans, worms, you hear those terms: ransomware, spyware, scareware, and probably more. You know, and this there's more things out there. Ransomware and spyware seem to be the big ones that have hit the news a lot lately. And there's something that nonprofit and small business really need to be worried about. You know, and this is kind of the attacks or kind of the attacks by sector. And you can kind of see, and I don't know where you would, you're definitely not corporation, definitely logistics. You're probably factored into one of these three. But you can see that pretty much without fail, other than corporations, which have a lot of unlimited resources to defend against them, everything else is been on the rise. Okay, this is a case in Texas, and it's a municipality, and I bring it up because it's very, very common amongst attack techniques and attack points of vulnerability. So there was a community, 22 communities in Texas in 2019 were hit by a ransomware attack. And the big teaching point here is the attack was perpetrated through a third-party IT administrator, which is really, really common among small organizations. They can't afford to, hire people to have their own network administrators, so they outsource it. In this case, ransom wasn't paid. They brought in the Texas Air National Guard, and some of the communities had remote backup, on a cloud, which made recovery easier. This was a Russian hacking syndicate that it was behind this, and they're famous. They've had several other attacks. But again, the thing is, this could happen to any nonprofit or small business that outsources their network stuff. So, this is from the mayor of Keene, Texas. The funny thing about this is not funny in terms of humorous, funny in terms of ironic, is that the IT administrator actually opened a phishing email, which is like a big no-no for IT administrators. And, other people at least have the excuse of ignorance or, lack of training, but your IT administrators should know better than that. Okay, this is another one from Florence, Alabama, where a ransom was paid. Somebody got infiltrated a chat room. There's certain security specialists out there that are kind of like, all they do is amass open source intelligence, and then they sell that open source intelligence. And that's open source intelligence is anything that you can find on the web, either dark or the normal web, that the public can access, with little or some effort. Anyway, so these companies go out and they'll find all this information, and they'll sell these services to corporations or whatever. So what happened here was there's some people out there looking around. They got into a chat room, and they found out that these hackers were inside this Florence, Alabama network. Florence, Alabama ended up having to pay $291,000 to get out of this. And again, IT manager. So they stole his credentials and took over the network. This is another famous hacking group, Doppelganger group, and they may be from, I think they're a combination. There is mercenary hackers. Okay, so you'll get something like this if you have a ransomware attack, and it'll basically tell you what to do, what not to do, and how you have to get onto the site and pay through encrypted currency. And it really it really depends on who the group is, but this is the one from ReEvil, and it's pretty common to look like this. So, you know, the faster you get in contact, that sort of thing. But the Tor browser is the dark web browser, and it's got several layers of encryption, which I'll save you with all the technical mumbo jumbo. But the bottom line is very, very hard to detect, if not impossible to detect where the who's sending the email, where it's from. If you guys have any questions, just interrupt me. All right, so here's some nonprofit and attacks that might interest you. I don't know what Red Barn is. Maybe you do, but obviously it was pretty devastating attack. Save the Children really got duped, and really, you know, the thing is, this could happen to anybody. The thing about, like, some people just do things that are malicious, and I'll talk about that when we talk about the different actors, where you don't cost you any money, but they do some things to damage your reputation, or you know, try to bring awareness to some sick and twisted, you know, cause they're trying to promote. So anyway, there's some examples. All right, so why are small businesses and nonprofits targeted? Well, for one thing, there's a lot of them, a lot and lots of them. And they also hold a lot of private data. You know, Cindy told me that there was a, these are, you know, these child advocacy, is that right, Cindy? I mean, I caught where you guys work, but some of the organizations were generic and I didn't understand, but that's basically, is that, you know, who I'm talking to? Okay.
Yes, they're all related to their child advocacy centers across the state of Kansas.
Okay, great. Yes, there's a lot of information out there that you probably, you know, that could be susceptible to phishing emails. And I don't know, you know, how you get funding, if it comes from donations, grants, or all of the above, you know, but ways of payment and all that sort of thing. Sometimes that is a pretty large attack surface too. You know, the other reason that small businesses and nonprofits are targeted, the same reason that small agencies like school districts and small towns are targeted, is because they just don't have enough infrastructure or training money to, you know, to be able to really defend their network adequately. You know, there's poor organization of functions when you only have you know, one or two people that are responsible for IT, if that, or if you outsource. Laissez-faire attitude, and I don't mean that, I spelled fair and laissez wrong. I spelled fair wrong. So and I don't mean that in a derogatory, it's just, you know, I'll talk about that, but it's like, so you guys are performing, you know, a very important function that's critical, you know, to social impact in this state. And, you know, cybersecurity a lot of times can be the last thing on your list you're worried about, and I understand that. And then you know, there's tons of public information out there to create phishing emails. So that's another problem with why small businesses and nonprofits are targeted. So, you know, here, lack of infrastructure, this is the money thing, you know. There is help on the way, I think, for this with the new cybersecurity infrastructure bill, because it does apply to nonprofits. It just passed. I have not been enough time to sit down and pick it apart. I will do that here within the next month, since classes have let out. I'll have time to sit down and pick this thing apart and write a good summary of it. So, but again, you know, you have an IT outsource. How many of you all have an IT outsource? How many people that run somebody? Okay, somebody else runs your network. Does anybody else do it in-house? Or do you know? Okay, yeah, so I see Kelly over there. She said that so who do you use for, you use a company that, how did you end up hiring them? Do you know? How did you arrive to the decision of how did you pick the IT administrator to run your network? And website? Oh, I can't hear
Ours, our so we're an umbrella agency underneath CASA.
you. Right.
And so it's our executive director over CASA is the one who picks who our person was going to be.
Okay.
And he's a local person to Leavenworth and does stuff for lots of different companies. That's kind of his job, and does cybersecurity for like our staff and stuff like that once a year.
Okay. That makes, I mean, that makes sense. And it sounds like you have a pretty good relationship with the person. So, you know, so sometimes what happens, and it's concerning, is that, you know, changes in leadership happen with nonprofits, and they stick with who they hired in the first place, even though that company may have switched hands 2 or 3 times, and you really don't know who you're getting. So, you know, but it sounds like you have a good relationship with them, and it's somebody that's been fairly, you know, recently outsourced. So, but yeah, and when you look at it, you can look at a website, and there's ways of doing this, and IP address and the URL, which is the, you know, the internet address, and the domain. There's things you can do by using search techniques to be able to find out who actually is running the network and where they are from and all that stuff. So, and then you'll have a lot of these IT outsourced companies that they may have 25, 30 clients, you know, and they have everything on their network, and things can get commingled and that sort of thing. And it can cause for a pretty large attack surface. But, you know, there's cyber criminals know that information. The other thing is too, is nonprofits, a lot of times you have to use your own personal devices to log into different things, because you don't have enough resources to issue everybody a company laptop that's protected with the right protocols to secure the network. So that happens. And then, you know, zero to little budget for training again. And then even if you figure that out, who trains is the IT administrator that you've outsourced. Are they responsible for training, or is that your human resources, or, you know, who does training with employees? And, you know, sometimes you say, well, I only have 3 employees. Well, you know, and there's things we can do. You know, our students, once they get to be a junior or senior in school, we put them through junior and senior projects. And what I do with my students is, like, they'll go out and work. Like right now, we've got two student groups. One's working with the school district in Greensburg, and the other one's working with Kiowa County and the city of Greensburg to put on awareness and training for them. And then it's kind of done with my supervision. So, you know, there's things we can do for nonprofits. Cindy helped us out last year, I think, with a project, which, you know, we're really ramping that up. And, you know, we don't charge anything. We just do it as a service to Kansans, and, you know, and students get a lot of great experience. So, okay. You know, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but you have you know, if you have a small organization or agency or whatever, you know, you really kind of who gets the blame, who's the chain of command, who issues guidance, you know. If it's elected positions, like within small government, you know, then that really can, as the turnover happens, you know, how much is that, the organizational structure, how much does that change? Now, really, this is more for, you know, to me, municipalities and that sort of thing. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Okay, so laissez-faire, again, I don't mean this to be derogatory, but and it's the same with any crime. And I'm sure our detective, Heather, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, where'd you say you were from? I didn't catch it. Was it Great Bend?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Yeah, so, you know, and you probably hear this, that it can't happen to me, or won't happen to me, that sort of thing. And, you know, it's like anything that's a misfortune, that the victim of a crime. So a lot of people have that misbelief that, hey, it's not going to happen to me. well, guess what? You know, there's a lot of bad people in the world, and you know, probably not a good idea to go through that that mindset and change it once you get attacked. It's probably good to have the cautionary mindset all the time. You know, time versus order of importance. You guys all have very, very important functions, and you know, protecting the best interests of the child. You know, 100 times out of 100, it's going to take precedence over, you know, cybersecurity training or cybersecurity awareness, right? And that we understand that that's you know, very, very common. How you're going to pay for your organization, how you're going to, you know, make payroll, all that stuff. It's going to take precedence over cybersecurity training. So, you know, all of that stuff is not unique to just your agencies, but anything where you have a small amount of resources and a very, very important mission. Uneducated on threats, do you really know what's out there? Do you really know what's going on? That's kind of where, you know, we can come in and help, that sort of thing. And then this one's really for social media. You know, you put a lot of information out there. One, you want to publicize your your call or your cause, but same token, you give a lot of information out, and you don't want to pass up opportunities to jump in the middle of you know, ways to promote your organization. So you know, that's the sort of thing. And the other thing too is, laissez-faire is people get careless when they answer emails. You know, and I'll show you an example of what I did with that. I'm really, our program preaches a lot of the psychology and of the victim and the attacker, and also the psychology of the social media user, and the amount of things out there based on just psychological principles is astounding. And then, you know, the other thing we try to preach in our program is, you know, how much is out there and how easy it is to find it. And I'll show you some examples. Okay. Sorry, I had to take a drink. It was Diet Coke too, and booze. All right, so amount of public information to create phishing emails. How many of you have social media accounts? Yeah, right. And you should. If you don't, you're not doing your job. Why do you have a social media account? Well, to promote your cause. Why else? Cheap or free, right? Most cases. All right, yeah. So it's a great way to promote your cause, and it's inexpensive to do so. You know, and if you have public funding, a lot of things out there have to be, you know, online, based on, you know, the rules and regulations. Now that might not be quite the case with your organizations. The other thing is media enjoys covering you because you're a good news story, and there's not enough good news stories out there. So what you're doing for children and families, it makes a great source. Well, when they do that, and we would never want them to not do that, but when they do that, there's information out there, you know, that, okay, this is the way it is. And so, you know, when you're one or two people at the head of your organization, they interview you. Okay, well, you give them a lot of information about your organization, and then somebody can take that information and draft a pretty attractive phishing email or connect with you on social media. So that's the problem. You know, that's the problem with a very, you know, that's the very, very small rose, but very, very sticky, or the very, very small thorn, and a very sticky thorn on a rose bush. So, okay. And, you know, and I'm sure some of you thinking, well, this idiot's telling all this stuff, but what is there to do about it? A lot of you just can't. I mean, you just have to roll. You can do as much as you can to mitigate, you know, to mitigate some of the things, and you don't stop what you're doing, because if it's working, you know, you want to keep doing that. Social media attacks are going to be really the next big thing. They're starting to take over phishing emails as a way to build trust, and then they'll steal your credentials get you to click on malware infected links. I just want to point that out because, I've got a class two semesters ago, I didn't even talk much about social media attacks. Now I spend, 2 weeks on them, and that sort of thing. So the other thing we do in our program is kind of unique, and this is from my 30 years experience in the military, is I try to get our folks to think like the enemy and try to go in and say, okay, and I have them compete against each other all the time on different things, but you're the bad guy. How would you attack you? And that sort of thing. So that's kind of one thing. All right, so here's some more terminology. How many have heard the term phishing? Right, pretty much everybody by now. Okay, how about spear phishing? Anybody heard of that term? Okay, spear phishing is when you target a specific group of people with an email that draws their attention. What would be an example of that? Well, if you have say an agency and you want to target all the caseworkers, right? Instead of everybody, you just want to target the caseworkers because there's something that might draw their attention, some kind of training or, some kind of change in the law or whatever. My daughter is a counselor for USD 259 for one of the grade schools, and she went through pretty extensive training in college and then in graduate school, and loves what she's doing, but she has to, I guess, register on a site that has have to put their licensing and all that stuff in her degree passer in there. Well, so why somebody could do all that cross-reference and then said, okay, all graduates of send a specific email to all the graduates of the Wichita State social work program or graduate program, which she went through. And, and so that would be targeting a specific group of people or all the social workers / counselors in 259, so that would be a specific group of people. You try to do something that has a commonality amongst them and send an email out and see, you hope you bite. Now you're going to get those sorts of credentials if you get those people. Whaling is going to be just going for the big fish. So you want to be able to get the corporate CEO or the head of an agency, and that's the only person you send it to. Why? Because you can steal their credentials, or get them to log into a fake website and get their credentials. And it gives you the ability to get around and in the network and find some things that they have privy to that other people don't. All right, so this is an example, and I'm telling you this, and there's some things I want to show you in a little bit that will probably amaze you that what's out there. So my boss, Dr. Gary Brooking, he's in charge of the department, the applied computing / engineering technology is kind of what he oversees. And I decided I would fish him once. So I went to this True People search, and this all took me 30 minutes to do this whole thing. So, I gathered this from True People search. All this information's out there. So what I did was I looked through things, and I wanted to get information on, his as much personal information as I could. And this is what it spit out. I found his wife's name, and I knew her name anyway, but I found his wife's name. I saw she had a Facebook where she basically spills her life story again, which I'm not judging her, but that's what Facebook is about. And then I found a bunch of interviews and news articles on him. So I sat back and I thought, okay, how would I attack him? How would I get him to click on something? So I took this info here to get his house and mortgage details, and all that's online. All right. And so I came up with this email, and this is skewed, but I had to do this to make it fit on the page right. So what I did was, you can find his mortgage, you can find his house, you can find his property taxes, and all that stuff online, public record. So what I preach when I teach students about phishing emails is the number one thing you need to do to to get in. It doesn't mean it won't work otherwise, but the number one thing you need to do when you're sending phishing emails is create some sort of sense of urgency, which that means, okay, your password's been compromised. You owe us money. We're going to report you to the FBI. Blah, 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 blah. You know, all of the things that get you to, or, you know, it can be something fake email from your boss saying, I need you to come to my office, or click on this link to pick a time for a meeting or whatever. You know, that's the sort of stuff that a sense of urgency. So what I did was I took this email and I said, okay, you're going to need to look at this because your taxes may go up. And if that happens, you're gonna have to talk to the bank about your escrow going up. Well, you know, obviously you get something like this, which they would never email this for one thing. But what I did was I put a fake link. This is not what the actual Sedgwick County Gov link is, but I hid it. So if you don't click on it, then you can buy your own domain or whatever. But I just clicked. I had something go to a YouTube video or something that said you're a dummy. I don't remember what I had, but anyway. So what he did was obviously clicked on it, and I could I could tell he clicked on it, and he said I fell for this hook, line, sinker. Again, I sent it to his. Another thing is I sent it to his work email, which nobody's going to probably do anyway. And Sedgwick County is not going to send something an email, but he didn't know that. I mean, he's not. That sort of stuff is, again, it's at the bottom of his list of importance. But this is the sort of thing we try to do, is raise awareness on this. All right, so here's some sites, and I don't know. I don't expect anybody to do this in front of everybody, but if you could just get out of, I don't know if you can get out of your screen for me for a minute and get into and try to put in your information. Just take about 5 minutes and do that. And well, we don't need to take 5 minutes. Take a couple minutes, try that, and then tell me if you're surprised or not. That's them, and True People Search are the two. So I don't know if anybody's willing to do that. I don't expect you to share information. I just wanted to see if there's out there, if you're amazed at what's out there. Okay, does anybody have any results to report?
This is Bev. I would say, so it didn't bring me up. I did the True People Search. It didn't bring me up until I added my state. Like, it brought up other people
Right.
with the same name. But once I did that, it's really awesome and creepy that it's got my, past address, my current address. It's got a correct phone number, and then it's got a bunch of wrong phone numbers.
Yeah.
And tons of, but you can tell that it's tied into social media.
Yeah, tied in social media and public records, right?
Yeah, because you can tell, because I don't use my maiden name except on there, like in between, so that people could find me that I went to school with, and you can see that that's how. Because also the possible associates are, some I don't even recognize the names, but then some I know because they're on social media.
So
but yeah, like even my grandparents who passed away quite a few years ago come up as possible relatives and stuff. That's creepy.
Yeah.
I feel like, because I'm really good on social media, of not putting my address and phone number and stuff available, but it's all on there.
Yeah, and if you can find these sort of things out about somebody, you can send them an email, directed email, saying what you can do is you can take, their ancestry and then go in and search obituaries and then find something relevant about the the family that you could use to draft a phishing email. And it's, it's scary. Anybody else have anything?
So True People will let you block your information.
Yep, true.
I didn't know about that, though. That's them. It had some of my stuff on it. But I blocked my stuff on True People.
Yep.
Actually, when I worked at DCF and we used to use True People to find people's addresses when we didn't, they'd come over as unknown in our system.
Yep. Yeah,
So.
but that's very good. You stole my teaching point. That's good. Good on you. Yeah, you can do that. And I'll be honest with you, it's one of these do as I say type things, because I haven't bought my stuff. I'm all over that. And I figure as much public speaking and much as I do writing and that sort of thing for different blogs, I'm hopeless. I've given up trying to protect my stuff. So that's them is pretty interesting. There's also sites where you can type in usernames and see if you're trying to find somebody's identity. Open source intelligence is kind of my thing. That's kind of what I like to do on my spare time and teach my students. But this is just the tip to iceberg. You can do reverse image searches with 10i. That's a great source if you're trying to figure out the source of an image. Oh, let me see here. Okay. I'm sorry. Heather sent me sorry about that, Heather. Yeah, so she said when I do investigations, use family tree now, get a lot of information. So Heather's probably got a lot of OSINT expertise in her job. But it really is great. That's the thing. It's a double-edged sword. It's great for law enforcement like Heather to be able to track down, leads and start and find targets and that sort of thing, and track steps and alibis and all that. But the other part of it, the other side of the coin is, it does give a lot of private information out there, and there's ways you can check IP addresses. You can find timestamps, and it's through geolocation on pictures and that sort of thing. And that's for other lectures or whatever, but there's tons of things you can do. This is just the tip of the iceberg but it's something that everybody should look at every once in a while to see what's out there. And you can also type in, your agency and see what might be out there. And there's social media, do nothing but crawl social media sites for information. And there's some of those out there too. But anyway, that's kind of my lesson on thinking like the enemy. Okay. So let's talk about the motivation. Number one, I've got these different font for a reason. Money's the big one. We're going to extort, we're going to ID theft, we're going to sell data. Doing this sort of thing is first and foremost the reason there are breaches. You do have some espionage and terrorism. Now that can be corporate espionage, which seems to be more and more popular, especially when you combine that with an inside threat, and then counterintelligence to try to figure out what the other side's doing. Hacktivism, again, you have organizations that may take a controversial stand on something or politically polarizing. Then you're going to subject they're going to subject themselves to possibly being a hacktivism target. Hacktivists don't like to do anything usually other than they don't steal things. They don't they're anonymous is a perfect example of a hacktivist. They want to expose corruption, expose or take down a position that they disagree with, whatever. I can't imagine anybody doing that to the organizations you work for, unless they're really, really twisted and sick. But sometimes hacktivists actually, can make it. Not that I would ever advocate for it, but actually can make some valid points. Some of the crimes against women that ISIS was committing, was brought to the attention of the world by activists. And so they do good things too. All right, so Then you have a revenge, you have somebody that's a disgruntled former employee, or somebody that's a current disgruntled employee, somebody that's, arrested a lot, and wants to gets back to, law enforcement for messing with. Usually it's a hacker that gets, arrested or questioned for their behaviors online, that sort of thing. But, there's cases, there's a big case that happened a couple, 3 years ago where somebody quit I don't remember who it was, might have been IBM. And what he did is he set what's called a logic bomb, which once certain commands were entered into the computer, all the Excel files were deleted in that network. Luckily they had backup. So, this happened long after he'd left, and they traced it back to him somehow. I don't know how, but he got, that's a perfect example of revenge. I think he got fired or whatever. Then you have I call this the kid in mom's basement, the class clown. And a lot of times they do it because they're just to show people they can, challenges with friends, a lot of times kind of narcissistic personality that, which a lot of hackers have that personality, but the bad hackers, so that, but it's just nothing more than to show their friends or whatever that they can, or think it's funny, same reason that, when I was going to school, same reason somebody put a tack in somebody's chair or whatever, or, threw a stink bomb in the class, those sorts of things. Same thing now, it's just the 2.0 or 3.0 version. All right, so, these are kind of the types of hacking groups. You can have nation state sponsored. We hear a lot about Russia and China and Iran, and North Korea are kind of the big ones that the United States is aware of, that they watch. And got another comment here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Excel files are important, so I should always back up those things. But anyway, so, then there's those with criminal ties, where you have hacking groups with criminal ties like Reevil. And, they say this is a Russian-based hacking group and that sort of thing. It could be true, but also, there's a lot of hackers out there that they're borderless. If there's a Russian-based hacking group and you're from, Canada or whatever, and you just like to make money and you have some skills, the Russian-based hacking group will vet you and hire you. It really, it doesn't really matter specifically where you're from sometimes. Underground groups, again, like, anonymous, that do the thing with hacktivism. And mercenaries, those are just people for hire. They'll go, okay, you do this, charge this much in cryptocurrency, and I'll make
Say it
sure that
again? Yes.
we get into the system. And
Right
then
here.
the lone wolves, the people that just have an agenda of some sort or another that don't work with anybody. Mercenaries will usually work with groups, but you have to go out and find them, and they're hard to, they basically they have no allegiance other than the money. So, okay. What do we do about it? All right. Well, this is the $64,000 question. We can go back to ledgers and handwritten notes and that sort of thing, which probably isn't going to be too good. Although, that's the reason it took so long to capture bin Laden. Is because the guy didn't do anything except for with couriers. He never communicated on the internet, and none of his people communicate on the internet. I mean, they did with rare exception. So it took, so he was onto something there. Everything was handwritten notes passed through 3 different people and that sort of thing. You can lock down the internet, which I think we've had enough freedom, and that would be really tough to do now. But to a great extent, there are things you can do to probably, to mitigate some of that stuff. And then, but limiting access to the internet is really probably the other thing that you can do. Okay, so here's here's the thing, and I put the article about the cybersecurity bill. You know, and this is going to be for, if you click on that link, it takes you to the article. This is going to be for small agencies and also nonprofits. So that's just a headline from it. If you click on this, it will take you to the article. And then if you're really legislation nerd, you can pull the bill up and read it. Again, I think this is going to be a good thing. You know, it's a lot of money, but you know, this is a pretty critical area. So we'll see. Okay. All right. Yeah, I can send those out. I can send them to Cindy. Or I can send them to everybody, or send them to Cindy and she can send them out. So, all right, this is an excellent, you know, I have fun bashing Microsoft and, you know, their web browser and updates and patches and all that stuff, but they really have put out a good guide for small businesses and nonprofits. And I make it reading and mandatory reading one of my classes. It's 20 pages, so you can download it. I put the link on there if you just want to look at it. I would highly recommend that you know, educate yourself and look at that. And, you know, if there's things in there that we can help with that they suggest you do, that's fine. Microsoft does offer a lot of low or no cost services to small businesses and nonprofits. Okay, you know, training. Okay, so this is where I start asking questions. Has anybody had formal cybersecurity training for their business?
I have, because I also work in my spare time, I work for the University of Kansas as teaching for them. So
Okay.
I've done that before.
What do you teach, Jim?
Project management.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you have KU, cybersecurity training.
Yeah.
I'm sure, you know, Great Bend has training for their employees. You know, but if you don't, and I don't, how many, that's kind of what I want to figure out is how many employees do each of you have? Like I'll just say, Diane, how many employees do you have?
21.
Okay, so that's a fair number. Judy, how many?
We have 18.
Okay. And Bev?
2.
Okay. Easy to train. Kelly?
With CASA, there's 11 of us.
Okay, all right. And Cindy?
It's me, Sarah, but Judy's are 18.
And Danita?
We have approximately 18. We have
Okay.
a couple of footings right now. We run the local domestic violence shelter, visitation center program, outreach program. So we're under the umbrella of like the shelter program.
Okay. And where were you from again? Where's Hope at?
We're in Iola, so
Okay.
we're in a really rural area.
I'm pretty familiar with that area. Okay. Shelby?
Hi, we have 15.
Okay. All right. And Jim?
There's a whole mess spread all over the state. So
Okay. All right.
I'm not going to take a wild guess.
Yeah, and I'm not going to ask Heather because I know Great Bend has, you know, dozens and dozens. But, so what you need to, you know, look at here is now, have you done any training for your employees for cybersecurity? It's okay. I mean, I'm not judging you. You don't get a grade or anything. I'm just curious. If the answer is no,
on the ground in the region in the event that Russia
you know, I don't know if their answer is no, you know, there's things we can probably do to help you. Through Cindy, there's things we can do to, let me see here. Let me put a chat out there. Okay, all right. So, and, training has to be effective, okay, right? And so the things you have to do is be able to go through, what's social engineering, what's a phishing email look like? How do you spot one? Do you know the dangers of working at home? And, I'm a big, since 30 years in the military, I'm a big believer in exercises and scenarios. I think that prepares people as opposed to just reading a bunch of slides online and clicking, yes, I've completed it. So that's thing. And, it's got to be effective a lot of times. To be effective, it's got to be something that captures your attention and then you commit to memory, which to me can be, a combination of entertaining and or interactive.
Joe, could you
Yes.
talk a little bit more about working from home and just a couple of the risks? And then also, I know certainly Wi-Fi hotspots carry a whole different set of risks, but what about even personal hotspots?
If your personal hotspot is protected with with the right security protocols, which most of the time it's going to be, because when you click on and you set your router and everything, first of all, you obviously want a password, right? So when you set a password so you can get onto your personal Wi-Fi, you don't want anybody just to be able to sit outside and be able to use your Wi-Fi and get into your network and monitor your network traffic. But so that's, because there's certain things you can do where you can capture, again, I don't want to get too technical, but you capture Wi-Fi packets going through the different layers of the network, going from the router to the computer, back to the router, back to the server, back to whoever's on the other end. And you can, like I said, you can capture message traffic. So you want a Wi-Fi password. And the basically the encryption you're going to have is there's different sorts of encryption, and WPA2 is probably the encryption that most people have, I think. Which really, when you get in the router, it'll tell you to click the thing. I would click WPA2. I don't even know if you have a choice to WPA. Anyway, all this means is it's different layers of encryption, and that's what you want to do. So Wi-Fi, make sure you have a password. If you're in a Wi-Fi hotspot, don't be getting into anything secure on or anything unsecured. Don't get anything sent. Don't get into anything sensitive while you're on an unsecured hotspot. So if you go to Starbucks, McDonald's, all these places have unsecured hotspots. And so when you're doing that, you shouldn't be doing your banking or that sort of thing, even though it's going to be an secure site. There's just things you don't want to take a risk with, because somebody could be sitting out there in the parking lot using a tool called Wireshark, which is free and available on the internet to sniff network traffic and figure out, what's going back and forth. And if it sounds like science fiction, it's not. But so Wi-Fi hotspots, just be careful what you're using them for. If you want to look up the address of something or whatever, that's okay. But any kind of personal communications, that sort of thing. Now, as far as working at home, if you're on a Wi-Fi, again, make sure it's protected. And if you're logging into your network remotely, you really need to make sure. A lot of people use VPN. You know what VPN is? Okay. Yeah. So it basically anonymizes where you're working from and connects you to your network securely. So that's something. If you have a device from your agency that you're using just make sure it's configured for with VPN so you can work securely on that network. And that's kind of the main thing. And you know, your IT administrator should be able to tell you what you can and can't do. Let me see here. Chat question. Okay, all right. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, so Heather says they send fake phishing emails. We do that too. I have my students draft fake phishing emails and I send them out. We send them out all over across university. And what's really funny is when professors click on them, they think they're the smartest people in the world. Anyway, that's a funny thing. I said, students call me professor, and I said, don't call me professor. I work for a living. So I usually get some laughs from them on that. Okay, so yeah, exercises, scenarios, that sort of thing. Training effective and interactive. So, okay, you know, again, scrub your information, organizational information online. You know, review your settings. You know, and even people, even like the third and fourth nodes of a center node, which is kind of a OSINT term. You know, you can have somebody that was a client or former, you know, formerly involved with your organization, talking about your organization, even favorably, you know, and letting information out about or and just make sure that there's nothing out there. Just be aware of what's out there. So scrub your work. There's things you can do, searches within social media like Facebook and that sort of thing, where you can just enter your organization's terms and it will show different things out there where people are talking about it. And I've got some other advanced search things you can use if you're interested. But if you review your settings, you know, and to me, Facebook, even things like Google, search engines like Google and Amazon and Yahoo and sites like Amazon, where you order stuff, they don't make it that easy to figure out how to protect their privacy, because it really isn't that easy. I mean, you know, I teach a class of seniors and they're like, they get confused, a lot of them, trying to set their privacy settings and limit and you know, and so I go try to help them, and it's like, I can see where you're getting confused. This isn't that easy, you know, but there's a lot of good guides online about setting your policy. And again, it depends whether you're working with a Mac or, you know, an Android phone or you know, an iPhone or whatever, to be able to set the settings. They all have their different rules. But yeah, you know, and that's, make sure that you can set them. Again, public stuff like your agency's promotion of your agency is tough to set things restricted, but you know, search engines are one that is pretty easy to set. So they're not gathering your information and using them in their analytics and selling them. See that a lot, where some companies will, you know, buy just huge blocks of data legally, and then they have all this information on you. Okay, so, you know, looking at policies for your agency as they pertain to passwords, software installation, suspicious behavior. How do you handle all these things? Do they make sense to you? Who has permission to make modifications in your network or make changes or install software? Yeah, you know, all of that stuff. Can you stick a USB drive in your computer? Is that something that is allowed or not? Can you download game? All of the stuff that could contain malware, and does it make sense to you? And then do you have two-factor authentication, which means, you know, where you basically, if somebody steals your password, then you still have they still have to do something else, like enter a code from a separate device, or be able to answer a security question or whatever, above and beyond the password. It's easy to set up two-factor authentication, and there's ways to do it where it doesn't cost anything. So you may look at that too. Okay, here's the sources used for this. Again, there's an article I highly recommend the Microsoft guide. They actually have some stuff online on their site that's good. And the Nonprofit Pro, there was a really good article in there. Let's see here. Do I have suggestions on policies for these standards? Yeah. I guess, you mean what are the repercussions if you don't do it, or is that, I'm not sure.
So that was me. I was just thinking, I've previously worked with a large community mental health center. And so we had a standard that if you had work email on your phone, we had everybody sign off that if there was some type of security risk, that we had permission to completely wipe even your personal phone.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't know if you had any type of security suggestions like that could help a small nonprofit.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that you can do. Obviously disclaimers as to what you can use. That you can use a government agency computer for, that sort of thing. As far as your computer can be searched or whatever, which you probably don't need to go to that extent, but obviously going through training so many times, you might, before you can get on the network, that's the most popular one, is you got to go through training. Okay, what else? Do you have to go through training and pass a test? Do you have to go through training and go through this exercise? What else do you have to do? You can have a criteria, passing a test. I saw some policy of us, it was a small business, and I thought was really good, is they had to have 2 trainings a year. One was in person and group interaction, and then the other one was online, kind of interactive online stuff. And they had to go through both of them. At 6-month intervals, which I thought that was good. And again, you don't want people to eat up half a day with cybersecurity training, but you can put together a pretty effective training program in an hour or 2. So that's certainly something you can do. Do you shame people when they click on a phishing email or whatever? I don't think that's good, because then people quit. Then they won't do their job because they're too scared to be shamed. But what you can do is, you can say, okay, we sent out 55 phishing emails to this month to test the security posture, and great job. Only 3 of you clicked on them, even though it only takes 1 to get in your network. But you say only 3 of you clicked on them. Let's keep that up, and then the next phishing test, if we don't click on any of them, then I'm half a day paid day off or whatever, that sort of thing to incentivize. I'm not really big into, it's funny to do, and I do it in my classes, but I don't think I'm big into the okay, let's put somebody's name on the board or up in the slide presentation that clicked on a phishing email. That doesn't work that well. So and I've had people in the psychology department suggest against that too. So, but there are things you can do the opposite, where you kind of reward people. But phishing emails, testing is a good way to test your security posture. And then, like I said, doing social media, building a fake account, what they call a sock puppet account, which is a fake email account or fake social media account, and going out there and testing and see how many people click on links is another good testing strategy. But as far as actual policies, I don't know. One thing that was brought up to me is, and and this really was kind of a human resources type question was, can I limit what my employees say about our company on social media on their own time? And I'm like, no, not really. But I mean, obviously, if it's slanderous, you can put a stop to it if it's not true. But, just opinions about things and why, my company's cheap, I don't get paid enough or whatever. The only thing I would say is, as a policy, you can absolutely limit that kind of talk if it exposes yourself as a security risk. I mean, if they give information, whether griping about the company or whatever, even on their personal time, that would decrease your security posture. Now, that's a way to kind of work it into the equation, if that makes sense. So, any other questions? I'm happy to talk about anything you want, or is there nothing?
Hey, Joe, this is being recorded, am I correct?
I believe so, yes.
Because I was going to say,
Yes.
if you have no objections to this being used by the CASA offices, this would be a good introduction for cybersecurity training for a lot of these offices to be able to use.
No, not at all. That's fine. Great. And I'm happy to make independent presentation too. Just let me know.
Yeah, sure.
I really prefer making this presentation in public because it's more interactive, and I understand there's limitations of doing that when you're dealing with people all the state. But
Yeah. I don't like personally, I don't like canned presentations, but I understand.
Yeah. So, but I think, yeah, you're welcome to do whatever you want with this. And, I can customize it more in the future if you need me to.
Any questions or comments or anything like that from Joe? Now's your time to ask a cybersecurity expert.
So I do have one question. Do you notice a difference in risk or vulnerabilities depending on what type of business platforms you use, whether it's Microsoft or Google for Business or anything like that?
Really the answer to that question is not unless we start seeing a lot of lawsuits. I mean, when Zoom came out, they promised end-to-end encryption and they didn't deliver. So there was Zoom infiltrations. There was not adequate instructions on how to, enter a meeting, how to make it private, all that stuff. That people were not, people just didn't know. It was just different language, and Zoom kind of failed industry standards by not explaining it. So, they got sued several times, and they fixed stuff. But, I'm just saying that really a lot of times we don't hear about it unless there's been a huge breach or there's been a lawsuit. So.
Well, and I did notice we just renewed our Zoom contract, and I asked about the HIPAA compliance, and we now have a business associates agreement for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you guys all fall under HIPAA, is that right? Or not? Because that's the other problem is there's so many different industry standards and regulations with cybersecurity, depending on your industry. And HIPAA was not designed for digital protection when it was first created. So
we really don't qualify necessarily HIPAA, but we have a lot of personal identifying information, a lot of sensitive content.
right.
So we wanted to make sure that we were using the highest level security because we do case staffings and things like that via Zoom.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. And and there are some platforms I would stay away from, like open source video platforms, that just I don't know enough about them, so. But Zoom's been they've learned the hard way, so that they're pretty secure now. Any other questions?
Well, if there's no other questions, Joe, thank you so much for sharing
Sure.
your expertise with this group of people. I know that the work that they do is very, very important. And I know that they work with a lot of kids and families that are at risk. So thank you so much for helping them understand a little bit more about how to stay safe. And I am going to launch a poll, and hopefully everybody will see that, and you will complete that poll so I can provide this information.
Can I vote on myself? Or?
No, you can't vote on yourself. But I need to provide this information back to the Child Advocacy Centers of Kansas.
Yeah, before I sign off, just thank you all for what you do. I realize it's a very, very important thing that you're doing. And again, talking to my daughter and some of the things she deals with, she works at a low income school. And some of the things she deals with, I know you guys earn every bit of your money and are probably underpaid too, but thank you for what you do for society and for the communities. So I'm going to sign off now.
Thank you, Joe.
See ya.
Send me that PowerPoint. I'll send it out.
Okay, will do.
That's perfect. Outstanding, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will also send out a link to this recording for those of you who'd like to have that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Thank you, Cindy.
It's a pleasure to meet all of you.
Same here. Great bunch.